Check-o, check-o! On the road!
All right. Welcome to Born to Roam, episode, I can't remember. It doesn't really matter. Episode 7, according to Mitch behind the camera. I'm joined today by Mr. Max Kerman. How's it going, Max?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming by.
It's our pleasure. Thank you for having us in your lovely backyard. Sun is shining. It's early July. And
Hot.
It's hot, right?
Like 31, 32.
Nice 31, 32. And, you know, it's summer's here, everyone. Hope you're having a very good summer.
Are you good with the Fahrenheit calculation?
No, I'm
for
terrible.
Your American fans? It's probably like 90 in American?
Something like that.
Yeah.
In American, yeah.
Yeah.
I realize that I don't even have any real like context for what temperatures even mean. Like Denise was saying to me yesterday, she's like, it's going to be 35 tomorrow. And I'm like, that means nothing to me. I don't know. Like, what is it right now? Is it 100? Like, I can't, is it gonna, there's certain, I think the further you get into adulthood, the more you realize everybody's got missing fundamental aspects of knowledge.
For sure. Well, I have that same kind of realization that I'm because I never really pay that close attention at the grocery store. So I have no context for what vegetables are expensive and which ones are the cheap ones. So you'd be like, it's like, did you know that apples cost, $8 an apple? I'd be like, wow.
Yeah.
Or something, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, no.
Yeah, they're good fruit. Yeah,
good fruit. I'm like, all right, whatever you say. Like, it's just no context.
You're just getting ripped off.
Yeah. Like, you could charge anything.
At the
I'd be like,
organic grocery store, yeah. Sometimes I see vegetables, I'm like, there's no way it could be that cheap. Like,
and then it goes the other way, where I'm like, wow.
There's got to be a mistake.
Like grapes, it's like $1.99 for a whole bunch of them.
Yeah.
And you know what I mean?
How is this possible?
Yeah.
No, I'm with you on that one. But one of my fundamental blind spots is I don't understand temperature and I have no context for it. I'm trying to enrich myself over the last few days, but
Lauren has said to me, she's like, Max, you're like smart. But if you don't care about a particular subject, you know nothing about it. So there's like a bunch of things that you're like, I have like less than zero idea.
You got some blind spots.
Yeah, many.
Yeah. I think that's an important part of being a human being. I think it's just having these.
But I think I've really prided myself about being a good delegator.
Okay, yes.
But it's just, I think, excelled my uselessness.
Yeah. It enables it.
It enables it.
Yeah.
So it's just like one more thing I don't have to know how to do.
Yeah. It's just you figure that whole thing out and...
But then I'm like, but I'm such a great delegator. It's my skill.
Yeah.
But it kind of is.
Gives you a nice false sense of accomplishment.
Yeah.
I am in that exact same boat. Thank you, by the way, Kyle, for doing all of the driving up to this point in our band's career, basically. So speaking of rock and roll, Mr. Max Kerman, if you don't know, plays in a band called the Arkells. We've known each other for quite a long time.
Long time. Very early Dirty Nil gigs.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I just wanted to see if we could get into a little bit of your kind of early time in music. And you grew up in Toronto, correct?
Yeah, downtown.
So what were your kind of early musical experiences? I know that's a very vague question that every single person asks you, but it's kind of more of a what comes to mind today for you?
Yeah, I neighbors, brothers that lived across the street. And one was like a year older, one was a year younger. They played guitar and drums, and their parents let them jam in the basement. So when I was like 15 or 16, I got interested in guitar. Because when I was growing up, I exclusively listened to the Beatles and Motown. Like my dad was a DJ at the college radio station in Detroit.
That's wicked.
Yeah, in like the late 60s. So he had like advanced copies of Sgt. Pepper's and like all these great Beatles records. And he trucked them around with him like his whole adulthood.
Does he still have them?
He just got rid of them.
Oh, really?
Yeah, which is kind of, at the time I wasn't into vinyls. I was like, get rid of them. But now I'm a little more into vinyl. I'm like, we should have kept them.
Yeah.
But so growing up, I listened to like a lot of records around the house. He showed me like my first movie I can remember watching is Help and A Hard Day's Night. And he could play a couple guitar chords. And so I listened to a lot of that growing up. And then I think from like grade 7 to 10, I was like mostly into hip hop, like late 90s, early 2000s hip hop. So like Nelly, Jay-Z, P. Diddy, kind of like the golden era in my mind of like of pop hip hop.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of hooks in those songs, right?
Yeah.
And then I started playing guitar when I was like in grade 11, and I've always like been wanting to be involved in stuff, you know. And I was like, oh, it was a talent show, and I was like, okay, I write a song about like the weird geography teacher at our school, and like perform that, and yeah, and that's and so there's a bunch of like footage. Like of myself and my friends, the two brothers that lived across the street, like playing at talent shows. So they went to a different high school, so we played their talent show.
Nice, got to double dip. And there's a funny video of we had a 2-song set, and the set list was Sweater Song, Weezer, Into Yellow by Coldplay. Nice.
And we were wearing all sweaters for the first song, and then we took them off and we were wearing yellow t-shirts, and that was like the big unveil. So, you know, I've been thinking about all elements of production. You know,
the very beginning.
From the very beginning. So yeah, and then I went to McMaster. I was like looking to start a band. That was like the main reason why I went to school, because I was like, okay, I'll get to meet new people. Maybe there's other people that want to start a band. And on the first day of university, because, you know, welcome week, everyone's very friendly, right? Like you can kind of like have permission to go up and talk to anybody. It's like kind of the one time in life that you can do that.
You have a complete social.
Yeah, and everyone just
check.
like has to be nice. So I was profiling people on campus at McMaster, thinking like, who looks like they might want to be in a band. And I met Mike DeAngelis, who's our guitar player to this day. And I did I ever tell you the story about Mike?
No.
Okay, so I was like, oh, are you into music? He's like, oh, yeah. I was like, who's your favorite band? He's like, oh, this band, you probably never heard of them before. They're from Winnipeg. They're called the Weaker Thans. And I was like, are you kidding? Because the Weaker Thans had just put out Reconstruction Site, which is my favorite record that summer. I was like, holy shit. And I kind of like pushed him. I was like, this is amazing. He's like, why did this guy just push me? And then I was like, do you play an instrument? He's like, I kind of play guitar. I'm like, you're in the band.
Yeah.
He's like, what band? I'm like, we'll figure it out.
Yeah.
And then the next day, I was wearing a Sam Roberts band t-shirt because I just seen Sam Roberts like a few weeks before. And Nick, our bassist, introduced himself to me. He said, oh, you like Sam Roberts? I was like, yeah, I love Sam Roberts. And I was like, do you play an instrument? He's like, I kind of play the bass. I'm like, you're in the band.
You're the band.
That's how the band started.
That is
very
amazing.
Lucky. You know, I feel, probably you feel similar with Kyle, where you're like, there's a lot of musicians that you know that spend a long time trying to find people to play with and get along with and complement each other.
Yes. Develop alongside.
Yeah. And we totally did that, the three of us. And I was like, I'm still a pretty hack guitarist, but like we all were interested in like, okay, so that first year when we were all in residence, we practiced in like the common room in Mike's res, and our first gig was like the Battle of the Bands at McMaster.
Nice.
And we like got a grocery cart and like put all of our gear in it and walked across campus with it. And then our first gig was at the Casbah.
Oh, wow.
Actually, you know who our first like off-campus gig was? Opening for this band called Frantic City, and Steve Kiley from Monster Truck was in that band.
Oh,
he played drums in it.
I remember seeing that name on posters at the Casbah, like that they would used to like laminate the walls years later. Yeah, Frantic City. I assumed that they were some sort of teenage head offshoot.
That's right. Yeah, it was like kind of like a Hamilton rock band. And I remember the singer in that band came by my res, Brandon Hall, to pay us our gig money. Like we weren't expecting to get paid anything. We're like, this is amazing. We're on the same stage Joel Plaskett played like a few months before. And he gave us $50 and we're like, this is incredible.
Yeah, rock and roll forever. Yeah. There's a couple things I wanted to ask you about. Unpack a couple things you mentioned. So I think it's very widely known that anybody knows of the band knows your affiliation and affinity for sports. So I was going to just ask, is there kind of a synergy in your mind in terms of your musical development, appreciation of hip hop and stuff that kind of developed alongside your love of sports? Are those two things linked intrinsically, or are they separate?
Yeah, I think I've never been a solo sports person. I've always been very team oriented. So I played baseball and basketball growing up. And I think the camaraderie and this idea that everybody has like a role to play on a sports team is something that I feel has helped with like being sort of the band leader with Arkells and just getting everybody has like a job to do, right? And having this sort of like all for one for all attitude. I think that was shaped by sports. And I heard like this really good writer who writes about basketball said something about like basketball is a sport where like every guy on every play must make a choice like when he should be selfish, when it's good to be selfish, and then when it's good to recede, depending on like what the team needs.
Yeah.
And there's a bit of that in like building a song or like
for sure.
where it's like, when is it good that Kyle does a big stupid fill?
Yeah.
And when is it bad that he does that? And everybody like being really mindful about like when it's appropriate to step out and when it's appropriate to be a supporting cast member. And when he said that about basketball, I was like, oh, it's very similar to like.
No, there's a lot of parallels. That's for sure. I mean, watching that The Last Dance, there's a lot of the tense moments just like throw you into a PTSD type state of like, oh my God. I mean, I didn't play on the 1998 Chicago Bulls, but I know exactly what's going on right there.
Yeah, and feeling appreciated. You know, it's like going back to the Last Dance thing. It's like Scottie Pippen was like felt like his coach didn't appreciate all the work that he'd put in, and he was deserving of getting that shot. You know, and then he decided to not come into the game because he was pouting about it. And you're like, you know, it's like there is many situations like that in band world where it's just like, you know what? It's like, we just probably don't need a bass guitar in this song. Yeah. Are you okay with that? Like, I think it's for the betterment of everybody. But, you know, but Nick could be like, but I've been practicing.
Yeah.
But you're like, I know you've been practicing, but you just can't play until the last chorus.
Yeah, exactly.
And everybody understanding that it's like, okay, there's a grander vision there. So yeah, so the sports stuff, just wanting to be a part of like a team is sort of like the, and then Arkells obviously a 5-piece, but more recently we've had horns and backup singers where it becomes like this big, like a 12-piece band, and that feels very fun. It feels very team-like to me.
Yeah. Much larger organism.
Yeah.
Was there anything about like, I guess like, maybe I'm looking at it too closely or thinking about it too narrowly, but like in terms of the music and its association with sports, like, you know, like the hip hop or anything played in between plays, or like, or even like Space Jam or anything like that. Do you think that helped you get indoctrinated into loving music, or do you think that your kind of early Beatle, like almost not optional love of Beatles from a young age, did that kind of give you enough groundwork?
I think there's a few things that happen there where it's like, I like the Beatles thing started my love of music and like love of like writing pop songs and like melodies and hooks and lyrics that really hit. I remember like listening to In My Life when I was like 10 years old at my friend Daniel's house and just like crying on his bed, just listening to the song. It was so beautiful. But then I love like one of my favorite moments like playing basketball is before a game in the layup line, just when people are warming up. You know, there's one line going layups and other people are getting the rebound, and it's just kind of a thing. And there's always music being played, and there's a rhythm to it. Yeah. And just like I just love just the rhythm of how sports moves and the right song with all that. And I think just being a sports fan, I don't think this happened intentionally, but as the band started to grow and we got placements in like video games or in sports montages, like there is like a real connection between like the right piece of music with something that's happening in that world. Even like Friday Night Lights, which was a great TV show, had awesome music in it. And it was like a football show, but like rural West Texas. But the theme song was Explosions in the Sky, which is like, oh, this is cool. Like this is like this Americana thing, but with this very like beautiful atmospheric music. So I do feel like they intersect a little bit more than maybe people realize. But that I think came naturally to me because I've always been keeping my eye on what's happening in the sports world.
And then back to the whole Mac thing. So, you know, I've talked to a lot of people that, you know, some people who go to university out of high school and then maybe develop a band afterwards. A lot of people have kind of a tendency, or at least like a temptation, to have some kind of regret about going to some kind of post-secondary rather than getting straight into rock and roll or whatever.
Who's that? Who said that?
I've talked to, I mean, you know, myself partially sometimes, but I mean like those kind of and you know a few other people, Kyle, people in my band, other people that I've kind of talked to around like some American bands. But I think, you know, whenever I feel that kind of temptation to maybe possibly regret something like that, I also consider the things that university gave me that I have applied towards my career in rock and roll. But it sounds like that situation is completely different for you because you got into university by your own admission to start a band.
Yeah. Well, I just figured it was going to be. I feel like maybe my circle in Toronto of musician buddies, they were off maybe going to different schools already. I was older than a couple of the guys I'd played with, so I knew I wouldn't be able to like jam with them as regularly. Yeah. So I just assumed. I don't know what it was that made me just believe that there'd be lots of people like me at school that would want to start a band. I had this idea, and maybe it was because like I was thinking about, I was really into Ben Folds and Ben Folds 5, and that was like a college rock band.
Yeah.
And I feel like I must have like heard about like REM who met in school. I feel like there was some examples that I could point to that I'm like, oh, these guys met in college.
Yeah.
And they like were living in a student house or something. Like, it felt like the path was there for that.
Yeah, that makes sense. I mean, I think a lot of my heroes as I was like in university were all fuck ups. So there weren't many people that had gone to university.
I must have like cherry picked a couple like
prime examples.
Yeah, prime examples of like bands that I liked, like REM, Ben Folds 5, like Americana, and then I guess I didn't probably didn't this at the time, but like the Hip I think met at school. I had learned that later, but yeah, it seemed like this seems like a place, and also like I think like the type of person that I could like the debauchery of rock and roll has never been the thing, like
appealing side of it.
Yeah, the appealing side to it for me, and so I think the idea of going to like some other guy who's getting his dumb degree in poli-sci or something like that, I'd be like, that's someone who I'd probably want to hang out with a little bit more or something. I don't know.
No, that makes sense.
Yeah,
that
just
makes
for
sense.
me.
Yeah. Was there kind of a moment early on? Like I remember hearing stories about that. Was it a student house called Rocky Sagin?
Rocky Sagin.
Yeah. So can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So my dear friend Aaron Goldstein, who you know,
lovely man,
and we were just at his space 2 days ago.
Nice.
We were working on some stuff, and so. The story with Goldstein is he's a couple years older than me, but he music lover, guitar player. I met him on the Go Bus going to North by Northeast in 2005. Mike and I was so busy on the Go Bus that we were standing in the middle, you know, like when we runs out of seats. Yeah. And we were talking about going to see Joel Plaskett. And then Goldstein was sitting kind of in the seat next to us. And he was like, going to see Plaskett? Yeah, I love Joel Plaskett. And then we kind of hit it off from there. And he kind of introduced us to like all the Neil Young records, the band, that sort of like 1960s, 1970s Americana. And we were with him the day he bought his pedal steel guitar.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And he and our friend Adam Melnick, who's a great keyboard player, who now is a great piano tuner around Hamilton.
Hell of a guy.
They lived in a house called Rocky Sagin, and it's on Paradise between King and Maine.
Okay.
Just like not far from the grocery store there.
Yeah.
And they'd have house shows in the basement. So it was like a proper like, you know, kind of just reminded me of like something you'd seen in like a rock and roll documentary. It's like that's where everybody got together to jam.
Yeah.
And there's a lyric in our song John Lennon, which is sort of about getting drunk at Snooty Fox and feeling sorry for yourself.
Yeah.
But it's like the lyric is like Adam's in love again and the good Rev wants to jam instead. And Adam was always like in love with some gal, and the good Rev is Aaron Goldstein.
Yeah.
And it'd always be like 1 a.m. We'd be like finishing up at Snooty Fox. He'd be like, should we go back to our place and jam? Let's jam. And we're like, all right.
All right, let's do it.
And we had a little side project band called the Surly Young Bucks, which was more like country rock. And our friend Cam Malcolm was in the band as well.
Another local excellent man.
Local legend, incredible songwriter, one of my favorite songwriters.
Yeah.
And so it's just like one of these places where it's like if you can learn to play like in a basement with like a tiny shitty PA and like cramped in there
and have fun doing
it, then you know you can kind of play anywhere, I think.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you had a really good kind of fertile little rock and roll scene at Mac.
We were really lucky that I'd say that a couple things. One is like the guys in the band were serious about it, meeting people like Aaron and Adam and Cam Malcolm. And like just the scene of indie rock at the time in Hamilton. I think it was like sort of the golden era of Canadian indie rock because we could go to the Casbah as 20-year-olds and see like Stars, Broken Social Scene, Constantine's, Winter Sleep, Joel Plaskett, Cuff the Duke, all these bands that were like in their prime.
Yeah.
Playing the Casbah for 200 people.
Yeah.
And then they'd go to Toronto and maybe play Lee's or Phoenix or something like that. Yeah. And I was like, this is the best. And so we learned so much from those bands. And they were like our heroes. Like that, and especially our first record, Jackson Square, is like very influenced by that like era of Canadian indie rock. And I remember even going to a show at Center Island. It was, I think, 2003. And the bill goes as follows. So I think I might have told you this before, but okay, headlining was Sloan.
Okay.
Direct support, Sam Roberts. Underneath that, Sam was the Stills. Then like Pilot, which is a band that people don't really think about as much, but they had some good songs.
Mm-hmm.
Broken Social Scene underneath that. The Deers.
Wow.
The Constantines. Like Buck 65.
Yeah.
And then second on was Death from Above.
Wow.
And first on at like noon, and we missed them. Guess.
Is it Chaos?
No,
That was too late. It
would have been the biggest band from that whole scene.
Arcade Fire?
Yeah.
Oh my.
And that like a murderer's row, and that was 2003. So all those bands and like Arts and
Wow.
Crafts and that label, and like there's so much shit going on, you know. And then the Dynalone stuff, like it was kind of just like, you know,
Percolating.
Alexis and City and Color and Attack and Black,
Yeah.
and Bedouin Sound Clash. It was just like a really good time for like Canadian rock music. It's insane.
Yeah, the early 2000s and like was such an awesome time as a fan, I think, too, to watch things. I was
You can see it up close. So we
Yeah.
learned so much as a band. We'd be like, oh, like that's the thing to do. Like
Yeah.
we're gonna steal all of Bry Webb's moves.
Yeah.
Like, I'm gonna have a guitar that looks like him.
Yeah.
I'm gonna do that a little
yeah,
bit. You
yeah.
know, it's like
do a little gruff thing.
Yeah.
And yeah. That was a prime time.
like
My God.
imagine like being 19 and then seeing like Nirvana when they were 23 or something,
Yeah.
or 25 or something, like being the generation just behind.
Yeah.
All that
yeah.
stuff was
to see them in their prime, and you're that malleable, to
and
be
you're
able
that
to-
close to it.
Yeah.
So I really feel like we have so much to owe to all those bands. And there's stuff that we do today that was like, oh, that's just something I saw Joe Plaskett do at the Casbah in 2005.
Yeah.
Like the way he like thinks about the arc of a show and his banter with the crowd and how he like peppers in certain storyline, like narratives off the top of the set. And he kind of mentions it again in the middle,
callback.
and then he brings it home at the
Yeah.
end. And I go, oh, this is perfect,
Yeah.
right? And I think there's like, we learned a lot. And the other advantage we had, which I always feel bad for bands that are like from Winnipeg or Newfoundland, it's just like we could play. We can go to Guelph, London, Toronto, St. Catharines. It just geographically, it's a very advantageous place to be.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Whereas like if you're a Newfoundland band, it's like just getting off the island and you're not flying because you can't afford it. It takes 24 hours or something.
Yeah, exactly.
Crazy, yeah.
I mean, it's a less extreme example, but I always thought that like if you're a band from Sudbury, God bless everyone up in Sudbury,
Yeah.
love your town and love playing for you guys, but if you're from Sudbury, heading down to Toronto is like us heading to Brooklyn.
Oh,
like
I
it's
know.
like that much of an outing.
It
You know,
is.
it's like a real serious undertaking.
Yeah, where we can just pop to Toronto for a gig and be sleeping in our own bed at the end of the night.
Yeah, and we're 40 minutes from the border.
Yeah.
So
Yeah,
it's,
that's right. Yeah.
It's quite, Hamilton is, there's definitely some very lovely geographic advantages
Yeah.
here that I think we're both very lucky to have taken advantage of. But that is a very, very interesting, I just didn't consider those things that you guys, that you had access to in the years that you were at Mac is such an interesting time.
Like,
to
you
get
know,
to
that I
see
feel
rock
like it
and
happens a
roll.
lot in history where you're like, oh, it's like not comparing the two at all, but like the Beatles being born just before the baby boomers. That's the biggest like example.
Yeah.
Where it's just like, oh, they were like the baby boomers started in 46, like after the war, and all the Beatles were born from like 40 to 42 or 40 to 44. So they were all just 5 years older than the 15-year-old screaming girls.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like,
exactly.
And so they had access to this like whole
huge wealth
huge demographic
of teenage dollars.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, that was a very interesting time in Canadian music history as well, like in the early 2000s. I remember some story that Brody told that he had a matinee show. Have you heard this story where at the Underground, where he had two bands on the bill, and the bands were Alexis on Fire and the Arcade Fire, and he had billed these bands because they both had fire in the name, and
That's
and
crazy.
nobody came except for I think the tickets were $10, and a lady walked up to the gate, and like both bands were sound checking, and there was like 2 people there, 3, whatever. And this lady said, "Hey, I actually represent these all these special needs students, and we're looking to like have some fun, and we were gonna go to a movie, but then I saw you're having this show. Like, do you mind if we all come in and I've got, you know, $500 or $1,000 or whatever." And Brody's like, "Oh yeah."
Wow. He's like,
And so Alexis on Fire and Arcade Fire played to basically like a
field trip
crowd. And I just wish I was there so bad.
wow.
That sounds
I wonder
like
who opened. Who would have got the opening?
I know, right?
Probably Arcade Fire, because they were from further away.
Yeah, I guess so, right?
You know,
They had
Alexis
a
on
little
Fire
less
could
pull.
claim like a hometown advantage, sort of. Yeah.
But the days of those, I haven't heard a story like that go down. But I guess all those events are always evaluated retrospectively. By
I'm sure there's about 1,000 of those that you just never hear of again. Because
exactly.
The band retired quickly after.
Yeah, exactly. They broke up amidst predictable circumstances. Obviously, we're in the middle of a catastrophe.
It is a
worldwide.
catastrophe.
Yeah.
Good Lord. So the numbers today in America is like,
It's pretty rough.
when are we going to be allowed to go there?
Yeah, it's a very good question. I mean, like that's kind of that's dovetails into my next question. I mean, given what is going on right now and the lack of kind of certainty in, you know, the world at large, but I mean, in our profession, where do you what kind of keeps you sane during all of this stuff? Is it just being proactive and trying to exploit the opportunities that remain? Or is it to just kind of like loft your ambitions towards, you know, the future and say, well, when this is open, we'll do this? Or how do you personally find yourself navigating this?
Yeah, I mean, I think, it's not easy. I think one thing the band has always done a pretty good job at is like keeping our sort of like eyes peeled on like kind of what's going on in the world, what feels good to be a part of, what we kind of can naturally be a part of. Because right now it feels like there's a lot of ideas that are being shoehorned around. Like, okay, I guess we're playing on a stage and people are in their cars at the parking lot. And I totally understand why people have to do that. But it's like, okay, I don't think we want to do that. We're working on some like acoustic stuff that we're like, okay, maybe that's an angle, that's a way in that is something we haven't really got to properly explore in the past. But maybe that's a scalable thing that we can be a part of. Because people like our acoustic versions. So we've used some time at home to work on acoustic songs. And that's feels like a productive part of our day. And everybody can record at home. And so especially when everyone was like not leaving the house, we got a lot of work done that way.
Yeah.
You know, I was talking to Tony, our keyboardist yesterday, and he was saying that we've never done anything to track, like play to track before. You know, like a lot of like electro bands and stuff we'll play to have some computer stuff going on. But we're like, maybe there could be something interesting about playing to Ableton for a couple songs that have like a dancey thing to it, if only to think about the light show. Yeah. Because I really sometimes like I'm jealous if you see a band like Phoenix or something like that.
Oh, yeah.
Have you ever seen them live?
I have. I saw them at V-Fest in 2006.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Yeah.
We saw them recently, and their show is incredible. And you can kind of only get to that level of like lighting cues.
Yeah. Synchronization.
If you're syncing to a track. And the band's still playing live, but there's like, you're playing to a click, and that allows the lights to go off
a lot
perfectly.
more intense lights.
Yeah. And we've never done that, but it's a conversation that we've had before. We're like, oh, what about for these like a song like Relentless, which which Tony triggers some parts to, so we could So it's like, okay. And so Tony was like, I kind of want to like learn how Ableton works. And so then maybe we could like dig in to see like, is there 2 or 3 songs in the set that we're gonna play to a track, so the lighting show. Maybe it's the first song at the top of the thing or something. And I was like, okay, that's an area to explore. So basically, I guess the short answer is we're using the time to try to explore ideas that we normally on a normal schedule would never have time
to do. Yeah.
And also just trying to, you know, keep our eyes peeled for like, you know, okay, because time moves in such a weird way right now that, you know, in 4 weeks from now, like we could be able to do more. So just like, you know.
Yeah, being ready to capitalize on some opportunities rather than just
Sitting around and
sitting
feel
around and you know, gazing into the fridge until the fridge gazes back.
Yeah, right.
I think there's a certain amount of
That's
that
good.
happens anyways.
No, it's true. Yeah, another thing is just like also trying to like just like figure out like how to work better as a unit. I know we've talked about this before, where it's just like how do we keep everybody like engaged and like just like the communication within the band. Like, okay, we have a little bit of time. Like, what are things that like issues that keep popping up when it comes to like game planning? What the next 6 months look like, and just like how can we make conversations as like fruitful and as smooth as possible, and get everybody on the same page. And that's like every fucking band ever. But we're trying to be as like mindful about that as we can. Which is like a very like boring corporate answer, to be honest, but like, well, I guess what else do we have to fucking do?
It's like, I don't know. That's all I got for you. Well, I mean, I think it's a very interesting time right now to kind of sit and watch what people are doing, because
and what people aren't doing too.
And what people aren't doing, because I think that there's the, you know, especially when it comes to releasing music and making plans, there seems to be generally two trains of thought and action, and one of them is exploiting what opportunities are available and using creative means to basically be as productive as possible. And then the other side just seems to be like, we're just going to sit here and wait this shit out.
Well, you know,
there's a lot of people in that category.
There's a lot of people. And then there's also, I think the people who are doing that are just using other acts as case studies for like how it went. So basically it's just like, okay, so Haim just put out a record like last week. I think it's awesome, but I'm going to see like how we all feel about the Haim record in a month, knowing that we can't go see them play at fucking Bud Stage or something. You know what I mean? Like, so it's just like, how are other bands, is it working for them by putting music out right now, or is it not working because the music comes and goes and it'll feel weird to see them in a year from now or whenever they can go and tour it. So just seeing kind of what works and what doesn't work.
There's a lot of canaries down the coal mine.
There is.
Now.
Yeah, it's like, you know, on a much larger scale, like The Weeknd or Dua Lipa, like they put out records kind of top half of quarantine, and I was like, oh, this is great, new music, I'm into this, but now those records feel pretty old. And I'm wondering if they go, maybe we should have just saved it.
That up,
maybe we could have just like, why didn't we just put out in September or something, and then hopefully be touring in the top half of 2021 or something. It's
going to be very interesting to see how history evaluates, you know, these things, because you know, it's impossible to determine like where we are while we're in it. Especially with these kinds of things that are, you know, the energy and money and momentum that goes into a release. And I totally understand and empathize with both sides of the coin of the people that are, you know, that it's us like, let's do it. Let's just drop the thing. Let's make it happen. And we'll exploit all available avenues of support. And then people that are like, fuck this. I'm battening down the hatches until this shit's over. Until we can play a show to at least 1,000 people.
Until we can actually get out there and support the record. I don't know.
I don't know. But it's also, you know, it's also interesting pondering how this is going to affect music, like even when things are back to normal, which, you know, they'll never be. It's not gonna. I think that we'll always bear the stamp of this whole thing. It's very interesting to see how live music and releasing music is going to.
Is it raining?
A little bit. God's spitting on us a little bit.
Yeah, it's like sunny, but I think you're getting rained on. We're kind of protected by the tree. Your camera's gonna be okay.
Okay, you all right over there? Yeah. You're listening to Born to Roam once again.
That's kind of pretty as long as no equipment gets fucked up.
Anyways, I guess like I find it endlessly fascinating to speculate about how things are all going to shake out, but it's also like completely nebulous because who the hell actually knows?
I know.
So let's get back to the questions that our extremely wide viewership would like to dig into. Okay. Do you remember a moment? Was there a moment? Was there a moment, whether it was like an early song that you guys had, or a gig, or a response that really filled you with the feeling that you could do this, that this is something that's viable and not just a pipe dream? Yeah,
I think I wrote a lot of very bad songs in high school. But the one that kind of, you know, the feeling you get when you're like, oh, this is good.
Yeah.
And you feel that way because it doesn't, that feeling.
a genius.
Yeah, again, you don't get to feeling very often. So you're like,
No.
this feels very unlike every other shitty feeling I've had. Because
Yeah.
most of the time you're just like, I'm a fucking idiot.
Yeah,
I don't
this
know what
sucks.
I'm doing.
What am I doing?
Yeah. It was a song that I wrote in high school, like in grade 12, called Tragic Flaw, which ended up being on Jackson Square that we put out 4 years
Oh,
later,
wow.
5 years. And we still play that song sometimes. But I remember like, that feels pretty good. Like, I'm not embarrassed by this. I can stand behind it.
Yeah.
Like, it kind of like does a Beatle thing, like, just when the chorus hit, and you're just like, that major chord. You're like, oh, that feels good.
Yeah.
And yeah, I'm trying to think. I'd say that'd be like the first time. But I'm trying to think like what would have been like a song that had a reaction to it. I mean, like Oh the Boss Is Coming was probably written like third year at McMaster. I was like, oh, there's something to that. The way like people just like kind of viscerally get it. There's
Yeah.
You know, it's like there's no
People start
explaining.
moving to it. and-
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because you don't have to explain why a song is good.
It sucks. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like either it's good or it's not good. And
But
if you have
if
to
you just listen to the lyrics.
yeah. If you have to explain why the song is really interesting,
Yeah.
then it's probably not
Yeah.
that interesting or worthwhile.
Do you find still any kind of feeling that like when the band can get a good groove together, then that's usually when, regardless of what you the songwriters bring to the table, like if the band can make something that really makes people move, then you've got something good?
Yes and no. I think early on it was really like dependent on the band feeling really comfortable playing. So we'd rehearse the songs like into the ground to make sure that everybody was like locked in.
Yeah.
And so like, okay, we can play this live. But then on the last few records, I think sort of as an effort to evolve,
Yeah.
is like, okay, we're gonna just like really think about how the song just sounds on the headphones and like not think as hard about like, am I like physically comfortable playing this song? And those songs, like, so a song like My Heart's Always Yours was kind of written like that. Like we didn't rehearse it a ton. It was like, this is kind of, it just sounds good coming back to me.
Yeah.
And we're gonna have to figure out how to get
Execute it,
comfortable
yeah.
executing it live. So I think there's a healthy mix of both of those kinds of songs now, where certain songs just like snap into place really quickly. Like Years in the Making was like, oh, this feels amazing. There's nothing really to think on. And then there's other songs. Remember, like even like 11:11, My Heart's Always Yours. I think Relentless. Those all kind of were like, okay, we're gonna have to really do like 5 months of touring before it feels good.
Yeah.
And now they all feel good.
Yeah.
But
You play them enough times and you get into it.
Yeah.
When it comes to like writing habits, are you super diligent about trying to like put your ass in a chair every day and work on it, or how does that work for you, or has that changed over time?
Yeah, I think it has. The writing style, or like the way the songs evolve, has definitely changed over time. I'd say right now we're sitting on a bunch, so I probably am like, okay, I'm good for now. Kind of thing.
Yeah.
You know, like
Yeah, you
like
don't have the fear of God in you right
yeah.
now.
Oh, that's it though. Yeah. It's like when you're sitting, when you're kind of done a record cycle and you have like a bunch of like weird little ideas on your voice notes, but you're like, I hope I really just like,
Yeah.
please God, let these become things, right?
Yeah.
And that's when you get stressed. And I remember like probably like a year ago, kind of feeling that way, going like, fuck. But then you kind of just like hack away at it. There are days that you just get stressed out, and like around the house, I'm like just like stressed out. Just like I'm in a bad mood
It's
right
a
now.
part of the process.
Yeah. But then, you know, if you do hack away at it, little things like I try not to get superstitious about how a song should come together. So I don't have like I need to be in my space, or I needs to be this time of day.
Yeah.
Or I need to like have eaten this for breakfast or something like that.
Yeah.
It's kind of just like,
You don't have to light the candles or
yeah,
anything
no,
like that?
exactly.
Yeah.
It's like kind of whatever comes to you, like at whatever time.
Yeah.
If it feels good, that's like sort of the answer.
Yeah.
So that's been, I think I want to mention this. I read this book. I've never read any Stephen King before, but I
yes, you
read
mentioned that.
his book On Writing. It's called On Writing. And he's very workmanlike about it, but he's very matter of fact about it. He like demysticizes his whole thing. He's like, listen, it's not that complicated. Just fucking sit down. I try to go for 2,000 words. Sometimes I get 3,000 in a day, sometimes 1,000. But if I do that for 6 months, I have a book. and then I put it out and I go to the next thing. And it's just like, oh, he's very just like matter of fact and workmanlike about it.
Yeah.
So I think about him. Also, I think the other thing I've done recently is I've really tried my best to like zoom out as much as I can. Because as a young writer and thinking about the Beatles, I'm like, oh, but is this chord change clever enough? Or, oh, the G to C, too basic. Can't do that. The Beatles would never do that. Or something like just, you build up like weird rules in your head that like are actually kind of unhelpful. Yeah. So how do you zoom out and kind of disassociate with the idea a little bit and just look at it like just a random viewer or a random listener? Yeah. Like, how do you do that? And
it's a very good point.
And I've been trying my best. And actually, one of the ways I've done that recently is just with collaborating with other guys in the band and other producers that we've worked with, is just not even holding a guitar. Just being like, okay, let's hear a piece of music, and I'm just gonna kind of sing over top of it. And if it feels kind of good to sing, that's probably the answer. Which is very unusual for me as a guy who like started writing songs with a guitar, and that's how you do it. To be able to just like write over a piece of music has been interesting. Like Mike, there's a new song that we have that Mike just kind of did a whole instrumental for it, and I just like wrote the top line over top of it, which was a new experience for me, and I enjoyed it. So just trying to like build up as many sort of like tricks for like how to kind of move the ball forward. Yeah, and I'm working on. Not
getting cantankerous or dogmatic about like, this isn't how we do things.
Well, we've got to, I want to tell every band out there, every young band, just being like, don't be dogmatic about it. And I'm still dogmatic about certain things I shouldn't be. Yeah. But I think, being very open-minded and just like picking up tricks from people that have been doing it for longer. Yeah. Can be good.
Yeah. And also like, I think everybody gets indoctrinated into rock and roll through some kind of mythology. And that mythology, while it like attracts you there in the first place, can be very dangerous because you build things in your mind that could have zero actual root in truth. Like, where you're like, well, Paul Westerberg from The Replacements never would have done this. And it's just like, who the fuck knows what Paul Westerberg would have done? And who cares also? Like,
no, it's so true. And and a lot of times, like, you're totally right. Like there's a style of songwriting that and just the lore around how certain great songs are written. Yeah. That you go, it's like, well, Paul like woke up from a dream and and wrote yesterday. Yeah. So I guess I just gotta be keeping tabs on my dreams, and I guess I gotta or whatever. Yeah. Or like Jackson Brown wrote Running on Empty because he heard someone upstairs. So I guess I should listen to the neighbor in the apartment. Oh, really close to or whatever the fuck. Yeah. And you realize that there's usually a lot more. There's a lot to it. Yeah. And, there's a little more collaboration than people realize, I think. Yeah. When it comes to like producers that had a hand in it or like other co-writers or whatever. I don't know. Yeah. Yeah, there's that too, right? A big, the unsung heroes of how a lot of the classic songs have come together. It's very, it's very, the key, I think the important point about that all is that even if you think you have the information about how your favorite things came together, you don't. No. You have no idea how it actually came together, so don't use your idea about it as a template to do anything. You got to just figure out what's going to work for you. Yeah. That's basically the key. Yeah, and then also just like sort of removing your ego and like personal feelings. This happens a lot with like, I think I was kind of getting at it earlier when it comes to like just the group work. Is like, do you not like the song because you just don't like the drum part that you're playing? Like, or is the song pretty good and we can just think about the drum part? Like, you don't confuse the two. It's like, and I find our band I think has gotten pretty good at like realizing that like the song is the most important thing, but it's very easy I think for young bands to go like, not into it. I'm like, no, you're just not into the two chords that this song is. Yeah. You're just bored by the A and the D. Yeah. But is the song could be amazing, right? Yeah. It could be Take a Walk on the Wild Side or something.
Banger of a chorus, but because you're bored.
Because you're bored by it, you're shitting on it. Yeah. So that's another tip for young bands. It's just what helps the song most.
Yeah. See if there's like if you're playing something that's really turning somebody else on, give it a chance.
Yeah.
Don't get rooted in how fancy
We really
your
sound like
part
a couple
is.
lead singers here,
Right?
Yeah.
Right? Yeah.
Right?
Let's head up. Oh yeah, there's one thing that I forgot to mention. Ross told me to tell you that he saw a guy who he thinks was in the Arkells on a bike yesterday, and he says hello.
It's probably it was probably Nick or Mike. We saw Ross though 2 or 3 days ago.
Okay.
And I waved at him, and I think he recognized me.
Okay, that may have been you.
It might have been me.
Yeah. So Ross says hello.
Otherwise-
I think it was Nick. I think he said Nick.
Yeah, Nick would have
But,
waved. Nick's a very friendly guy.
Yeah, so that's the first thing. The second thing is circling back to the McMaster Battle of the Bands.
Yes.
I have with me.
I think you told me that.
I have with me the. So Max spoke earlier about the Battle of the Bands that you guys played in. Did you guys win?
Yeah, we
You guys won.
Yeah.
And so we played in the Battle of the Bands that Dirty Nil did in 2010.
Oh, wow.
And a little backstory: we double dipped as another theme of
That's
this
right. Because
episode.
did you do a Laurier one? Or
I did a Laurier one. I went to university at Laurier,
Yeah.
and Kyle was going to school at Mac. And we got beaten out of the Laurier one.
So we're going to
So
this
we just went to Mac, and we won the Mac one. And so, anyways, the ultimate showdown took place at Mac, the finals, and the Arkells were the judges.
Oh yeah, it was just
And
me and a couple other people.
You and a couple of guys from the Arkells, right?
No, it was just me, and then I think I don't think the other guys in the band were there. But it
Were
was
they
like,
not?
It was some other like campus events promoter or something like that.
So yeah, we played this show, and I found just today under my bed at my parents' house our scorecards that we were given that secured our win of the show off 2010 finals. And I was just wondering if you could identify
Which is my
out of
writing.
all of these which one
Okay.
is yours.
Let's see. I think that would be my.
Some pretty good reviews all around. We got we lost a lot of marks typically in stage presence, and some really good notes.
Okay, this looks like this one could be me.
Could be you.
I don't think this was me.
I think my favorite one is lead singer should warm up. Yeah, that's my favorite piece of.
Great
Yeah.
structure, voice control, good energy, stage present, worked as a unit. I don't think, see this, I think mine would have been a pretty basic, I think it was this one.
This one?
Yeah. No, this actually shows how little I actually write. I think, you know what, I think this was mine. Just said no question.
No question. Yeah. I don't know who did this one, but they wrote a smiley face and a heart and had some very detailed notes and seemed like they had a change. They were originally going to give us all 9s, but then they had to change their heart and they give us all 10s. So anyways, it's a nice, fantastic document of McMaster University history. It should probably be preserved.
Put it in a frame, in the archives.
In the archives.
Yeah.
Very important piece of history right here. But
yeah, actually, my friend Jay Kelly, who I lived on Arkells Street with, he just found the lease for the house.
Oh, wow.
That we lived in, and that's what the band's named after. So yeah, I was like, I need to get a copy of that.
legendary historical documents.
Yeah, that's right.
So, anyways, I'd like to formally thank you for letting us win.
It was well deserved.
It was
You guys were the best thing there.
it was a tightly run battle between us and the abbreviations.
And the abbreviations, that's
And,
right. I
shout
remember
out to
feeling
the
conflicted.
abbreviations. Yeah, good
because
band.
of pals with them too.
And I remember there was a band called Glass Tiger, and they were an instrumental metal band. They didn't have a singer,
Isn't there a band called Glass Tiger?
or maybe it wasn't
I think Glass
Tiger
Tiger is a
Attack or
band.
something. And then, the other thing that I'd like to mention about this very contentious Battle of the Bands, University Battle of the Bands competition between universities was that they had this one feature online where you could vote for a band online, and anyone could vote. And so our friends who are coders at Waterloo, who all now work in Silicon Valley, basically hacked this thing and created some sort of algorithm. So anytime someone would vote for another band, it would give our band 5 votes.
Wow, that is amazing. You
And,
can always count on the coders just to come through for you.
So I think
if you're on their good side.
It And then something happened like in that movie Office Space, where instead of like rounding it up a quarter of a cent, we ended up with like 100,000 votes.
Like, wait a second.
Had clearly cheated. And we were almost disqualified, but they struck that from the grading sheet, and we were very lucky. But the other bands were very, very upset about that. Do you remember that band Black Magic Movement, who played? They brought a big posse, and
yeah, I do remember them. Oh
yeah,
wow,
yeah.
My memory of our Battle of the Bands gig was this the band that beat us in the finals. I think it was the band called the Johnstones, who were a ska band.
Yeah,
and they were so outrageous, and we could not compete with their like stage value. Like they had like so many like comedic bits. They were kind of like the Beastie Boys meets something else, but they were like really obscene. They all took off their shirts the whole time, and just like it was just like extreme ska.
Extreme ska.
Yeah.
Well, how's that not gonna win?
Yeah.
You know?
Oh yeah. We're like, wow, these guys really don't give a fuck in the best possible way.
Yeah, I remember also there was the band that beat us at Laurier, that beat us out of the final, was a band called Funk in the Oven. And Funk in the Oven wore all plaid and only played covers, and they had like 3 saxophones. And,
wow.
They destroyed us in the final. They beat the Nil.
Yeah,
so,
they're playing covers, it's not quite
much
fair.
deserved.
Yeah.
Well done. So I think that about does it. But I would just. Is there anything else that you'd like to add to this to the world? Any message? Parting words?
No, I think we're good. Yeah, no, we covered it all.
We've solved all the world's problems.
Yeah,
and we wish everyone out there a happy and safe summer. Mm-hmm. And just hang in there, and we'll get to the end of this shit together. All right. Well, thank you very much, Mr. Kerman. Thank you very much for being on Born to Roam. And hail, hail, rock and roll. Take care of each other. We'll see you soon.